it is beautiful. Welcome everyone. Good to see some of the faces. My name is Peter Matha. I'm an associate dean at Rutgers, but I'm a newly minted director of the ULA. I'm co-directing this year with Monica Sacriston, who's been leading the ULA for many years. I was a board member and chair at UNICON, so I've been around for a while, and I've been teaching in the ULA for, gosh, I think 6 or 7 years. So I've seen the ULA in all kinds of different directions. But before we get kicked off, I'm going to have Shalini, who is the current vice chair, and by the time of the start of the program, will be the chair of the UNICON board, just to say a few words on behalf of UNICON. So Shalini, please.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. I'm really excited to have an opportunity to share my experiences later, being a ULA alum myself. This is one of our key premier flagship programs for our own people to get the leadership and development that others might get that we actually provide in our industry. So really welcome, and we hope to see you all at ULA and Johns Hopkins University this coming fall. So thanks for being here today.
Standing. So before I kick off, feel free if you want to drop into your chat where you're coming from today, your institution, your location, just to get to know where everyone is from. I'm going to sort of share a few slides, but I'm also going to be happy to open up for discussion and just sort of make sure that we answer all of the points that you're interested in hearing about. But to Shalini's point, the ULA was developed 10 years ago now, which is kind of humbling to be already at this milestone. But it was really developed to help with the leadership gap that all of our member schools were experiencing, meaning we do this for a living, right? We help all of our clients, develop their people, help develop their organizations. But there really wasn't a structured leadership development program for our members, for people that are just entering into executive education, as well as people that are perhaps seasoned but want to move to another leadership level at their respective schools, or might even have ambitions of running a shop one day. But the way that we sort of have designed the program, not dissimilar to some of the designs we likely have at our respective shops, but there is certainly multimodality, right? We do some topic-based learning. So you'll see some of the topics that in some of the past sort of content areas that we have covered in the past. But so there's content areas, there's group work, there's both virtual and in person. So it's a truly hybrid experience. We're crossing time zones all over the world. So there's really some interactivity. We do some assessments. You get mentorship and coaching components. So it really is an experience to bridge the gap between what we do and what we might need as individuals and leaders or aspiring leaders. And what you'll see is that we've really tried to curate some of who we think are some of the best, some of the leaders across our institutions, great programs that have tremendous experience, and to make it a very impactful program for everyone. Let me progress here to the next slide. So people often ask, who's right for the Leadership Academy? And typically we see managers and directors, and and I say those terms with the caveat that we all label our staff a bit differently. There are some schools where a manager is a director someplace else, or vice versa. But what I mean by that, when I use the words manager director, usually they have some direct reports, or they're working with a bunch of colleagues, so they might not be direct reports, but they're influencing without sort of true, we'll call it responsibility. So if they don't have people management as part of their responsibility, they usually have some sort of financial management as part of their responsibility, right? So they're responsible for a portfolio of programs or a certain area of the business. And so as you can imagine, they have varying degrees of responsibility and experience. And one point that I wanted to clarify is that it doesn't necessarily need to be somebody who is the jack of all trades, right? There are sometimes people come that are more open enrollment focused and some of them are more custom focused. The program itself will be broad. It will be across both, which often is helpful for people to kind of cross-pollinate their experiences with what might be happening on the other side of the shop that they don't see on a day-to-day basis. And so it's purposefully meant to be relevant and applicable across almost all roles in the organization, probably with a little bit of a bias towards people that are, have responsibility financially, people, growth, operations, something of that nature that they are held accountable for. Any questions about target audience? Any questions I might answer there? Great. I see some of the people putting in the chat where they're coming in from. Welcome, everyone. Awesome. Great. If there's no questions about the audience, I'll move to my next slide. Again, happy to answer any more questions as they might come up. Here's what we have sort of distilled as some of what we think is really brings a lot of value to the ULA experience. It's the really first but evolved product. I mean, in the sense that after 10 years, we've learned quite a bit around what works and where we have evolved the model, the content, the structure. So it really is a program for exec ed developed by exec ed. Again, which I think as you can probably relate to your own work in your own shops, the more it speaks to you, hopefully the more impactful and relevant it is for the work that you do. You'll notice that we do a lot of hands-on work. We really try very hard to make sure that they're not lectures, that they are interactive, that there's group work inside of all of the live synchronous modules. And so, you should plan on, being on camera, having rich discussions, working on presentation skills, working as a team. That is all baked into how we do it. One of the components you see there is that by integrating it with the team development conference, which will happen in the fall, it allows us to do and kick off the early part of the program with a in-person network building session. So you get to spend a full day before the conference working on a couple sessions with faculty, but also getting to know your cohort, building those relationships. And again, that's a big part of it. You see, it's one of our other key benefits. And you really walk away from the ULA with 20 to 25 colleagues that you build a relationship with, feel comfortable calling when you have a challenge in your day job and say, hey, how did you think through this challenge? I mean, I can tell you for the people that from my shop that have gone through ULA, that has been one of the big benefits, is not only thinking outside of your normal role, but it's having a true group of friends that you can call on, that you can confide in, get guidance from, just innovate with. That network becomes, I think, one of the greatest assets that comes out of the ULA experience. If for any of you that have not been to a UNICON conference before, it's what most people even say about conferences, right? Sometimes you just need to know that others are feeling the same problems that you're feeling, and to hear how others are overcoming those challenges, whether it's faculty or marketing or business development or just operational stuff. It's really helpful to have peers that you can commiserate, brainstorm, solution with. And so I'm going to put a big underscore here on the power of the network. Oh, goodness. Okay. Kind of covered some of this already. I apologize for some of the misformatting there. I'm not sure how some of the letters got dropped to a lower level, but anyhow, hopefully you can still read it okay. You can see a couple of the key pieces here. We're really working on your individual leadership development as the core focus of the program, but it also connects to what we think brings a lot of value to your sponsoring institution. Because if we can help you become a more strategic leader in the executive education space, you inevitably are going to deliver bigger and better results for your institution. And so we see that as sort of a mutual win-win. Why your school should sponsor your participation and attendance, and also why it's worth your time and effort to dedicate. Right. The reality is, just like we say to our customers all the time, it's hard, right? At times, because we're working full-time jobs, we have families, and then at sometimes difficult parts and times of the day, we've got to jump onto synchronous learning sessions to try to do that as well as our day jobs. And so it does take a fair amount of your time commitment. With that said, we have really tried to design it so that we are not overwhelming you, that we're doing it sort of in a very thoughtful, spaced out way so that you can gain momentum without sort of experiencing burnout. So it has been thoughtfully designed and planned to be, helpful for your own enrichment, but also reasonable in terms of time investment throughout the program. I don't think there's any other questions. Obviously, you can see the tuition costs here on the slide. Again, the goal really is for advancement. That's why the crux of the curriculum is around more strategic topics, getting you to think about sort of what's coming around the pike, the industry, and I'll show you that here in a second. And you will receive proper credentials that you can add to your CVs upon completion of the program. Okay, some of this I've touched on, but I just want to underscore, I talked about the network. The expanding network becomes a real value add. You'll notice a lot in the curriculum, which we'll touch on here in a few slides, around innovation. As for all of us that are in this industry right now, we probably feel the pace of innovation only getting faster and more intense. And so we try to really break that into the curriculum to be doing a lot of thinking and doing around what's around the next corner, right? How do we stay on top of big trends like AI, and how are we integrating that into both our programs and our operations? How are we thinking about strategic partnerships? How are we thinking about competitors, right? Who are the competitors, right? So some of those things that, again, depending on your role, you may not be thinking about on a daily basis. But this is a great opportunity for you to really take a step back, work with peers, work with faculty to really analyze some of these sort of key drivers of our industry, to be thinking about how you might have success either with your, whatever your scope might be, with portfolio or a larger role that you have there. Another one that you see here in the bottom left bullet is around the stakeholder expectations, right? Stakeholders continue to be a challenge, to be honest with you. If I'm being, right, probably the thing that most of us sort of, I don't say belly ache about, but the most is how do we get our faculty to do more, right? And as we're trying to seek growth, we're trying to build our schools and our capabilities, it pushes your resources, whether it's internal resources like your staff, your supporting staff, to your faculty, We need to be able to how to leverage those relationships and stakeholders for sort of maximum benefit and growth. And so that's one of a key component of the conversations that we'll have is thinking about ways for us to get more out of and think more about what we do and leveraging those relationships. And the last one here is really we pose lots of challenges, right? What are some of the real issues that we're facing, both from a macro perspective as well as from an individual school perspective, and how do we think through some of those potential solutions? All right, I've been chatting for a while and you guys have been quiet, so let me pause here. I'm gonna do the long pause and see if anybody has any questions or comments that I might be able to address. I'll take a look at the chat. If you prefer to share them that way, I can read the chat if you will, but let me hear from you. Any questions or comments so far? You guys gonna let me just hang up here and have to fill the air. My goodness. All right. I'll remember this. Only kidding. Hopefully that means that I'm being fairly thorough and I'm answering the things that you were thinking about. But if not, please. Good question. So how many individuals are in each cohort? Generally, the average is about 25. We will take up to 30, but usually the average is somewhere about 25, which is a good sized cohort. It allows us to do group work comfortably. It allows lots of individual time, and it's not too unwieldy where everyone still gets a very good opportunity to interact and meet one another. So roughly 25, I would call the average. Hope that answers it. Okay. So if there are
Carmen Taylor here from UGA.
Hi, Carmen.
Hi, well, I'm just kind of getting a little bit more in depth about your ideal candidate. You mentioned people management and financial management. Um, it's I know all the teams and all the universities are structured differently.
Sure.
There, if my role involves those types of things, but not direct reports, that still make me a good candidate because I'm trying to figure out what kind of is there is people management involved and obviously you have to manage finances, but they're not direct reports, so there's not an HR component.
Yeah,
So I'm just trying to see how deep that needs to be.
yeah, no, I think you sound like you're aligned with a normal participant from our program. And we actually don't cover a lot of HR related stuff in the program, if I'm being honest. I think because the reality is that we've got a very diverse group of people, right? We've got people that are coming from private institutions, public institutions, some are 501c3s, different parts of the world. Very hard because there's no single playbook for a lot of the HR things that happen. So that having them be direct reports isn't critical. I just think that sometimes the conversations, even if that you're not necessarily doing the performance reviews, but if you have to work with people, I'm gonna call it influence without authority, so to speak. That I think is very helpful for the conversations that will happen in the cohort experience. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, very helpful.
I just sometimes I don't mean to be over transparent, but like the true individual contributors that I've almost got to call them living on an island and don't have connective tissue to the home base operations I think it'd be harder for that kind of learner to do the program. While they would still be interesting for them because they would be learning things that they don't see on a day-to-day basis, it would be, I think, a bit harder to relate to and have some deep conversations around what's really happening inside of some of the bureaucracies and the hoops that we all have to jump through. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. I did switch out again. Please jump in, everyone, guys. This is meant to be interactive, and we really want to hear from you what sort of questions you might have. I see a question here. I'm going to read it out loud just so that in case you don't see it. This is from Louise. I'm particularly interested in the middle market segment since it's been a hard to develop executive education program for this group. Would it hold any insights for this specific segment? Louise, may I ask you to define middle market? What do you mean by middle market? Size of organizations that you're interacting with?
Yes. Not an IBM, not an Amazon, not big companies, much more small companies for in Brazil would be middle market. It's 50, 100 personnel and less than $1 million money.
Yeah. So what I'll tell you, Louise, is that inside the ULA, you're going to have participants from all different size institutions. And because of that diversity of participant and related institution, there's going to be lots of different, I'm going to call it target markets represented, right? Some of the, I'm going to call it the very big brands are going to skew a little more to that Fortune 100 kind of client. And then you're going to have other sort of either regional players or specialized players that are going to have experience in all those different markets, large, middle, and even some small. I can tell you personally at Rutgers, we do almost nothing with that very small mom and pop individual family business, but I know other schools, that's a big core of their component. And so I think the reason I'm saying all of that is because while we don't necessarily pull out and focus on helping with different profiled customer segments, you will naturally get that through the conversations with your cohort. So like, for instance, the topic that I teach is around marketing and business development. And we purposely break it out so that you have the chance to dissect what works from a business development perspective or a marketing perspective based on different client profiles. So I hope that answers your question a bit. I defer a bit to the diversity of the cohort as where some of the real learnings will be around some of the new, the different segments, the different challenges that people might have. I hope that gets it. But thank you. Thanks for the question. I really appreciate it. Thanks for mentioning the cohort. Is there a limit to the number of participants from each institution? So, and Taryn, I hope I don't misquote this, but my recollection was that we were saying that we were holding institutions, so I think 5 was the max. And then if there was capacity that we would try to open it up. I don't know if Taryn, you can see the question, but it was how many members from any given institution can join ULA. And for some reason, my head said 5 was what we were holding it to.
It's actually 3.
Okay.
Peter? Yeah.
Thanks for the correction.
Yep.
But my right, Taryn, that we hold it to 3 initially, and if there's capacity, sometimes we make an exception.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry, who was that? Joanne? Great. Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't couldn't remember it specifically, but thanks, Taryn, for answering the question. Any other questions? If not, I will proceed a little bit and I can come back to more questions. So as you can see, some of this program structure. So we space out the live synchronous sessions. Again, we try to do them in a time of the day that is reasonable for all the different geographies represented in the cohort. With that said, usually the person who suffers the most is from Australia, because it's almost impossible to get a perfect time. So there are a few time zones that can be tricky, but we really do our best to schedule based on where everyone is, the right timing for everyone to reasonably join the live sessions. There's a note there about the full day, I've already talked about that as part of the team development conference, which will be at Johns Hopkins in the fall. We do an event so that you get a chance to meet and interact with all of the board members at UNICON. Again, I think that's an interesting opportunity because the board members are really developed or a representation of all of our member schools. So you look across all the different geographies, different sizes of schools. And so in that one interaction, you get to really meet and have the opportunity to learn from a very diverse leadership group that really represents not only who we serve, but the membership of the whole of UNICON. And then the mentoring in 360. So I'll talk a bit about this in the next slide, but we build out a bit of mentoring. So you'll see mentoring usually happens somewhere around midway through the program, around March, April. And the goal there is to be able to get people, so you've already learned some of the content, and this gives you a chance to start to work one-on-one with a senior leader in the business. And we match you based on some of the criteria that you identify. So we ask you to fill out a sheet where you can say, about your background, what your interests are, what you hope to get out of a mentoring experience. And then we work across, all of our institution members to find a good mentor match for you to help you, have one-on-one opportunities to ask questions, to learn more about the things that might not be structured inside of a module, and just share experiences that, again, hopefully will lead you with some greater insight on how to do this business perhaps better or differently than you currently do it. So if I can, I'll pause here. I want to walk through a bit of kind of what the module topics mean. And so we start off in October, and this has a lot to do, the business of developing business leaders really starts with looking at some of the macro trends, past, present, and future. Some of the big drivers of the executive development industry, things that we're faced with, as you can imagine, technology, partnerships, macro economic changes, right? Political changes, all of those sort of happen in the broad context. And so we start to have that happen early on in the program to kind of take the 50,000-foot view and then start to kind of pull back the layers. Early November, December, we really are looking at some of we call it the more critical issues of today. And then we do a workshop prior to team development conference where we're really trying to spend time with the business model innovation, right? So we all come from our own respective shops, which are going to be structured a certain way, are going to have a certain focus, whether it's open or custom or industry segments or however we're organized. The goal here is to really be thinking more blue ocean. How can we think differently about the model that we are in and imagine what could a model look like that was better or different or more creative or innovative for the direction that we're all going. So it's a chance to step out of what you do and think about what you want or what you think could be the better solution. As we come after sort of our face-to-face time, that's what over December, as we move into the early part of the year, we start to talk about this idea of value. Again, we all probably sell a little bit differently. While we all sell kind of the same thing, we're selling education. How our customers perceive value by our institutions, some similarities, some differences, but here we really sort of try to put it all on the table and discuss and to think about how we communicate value. Not just what it is, but how do we communicate and deliver on that value. The next one is reaching out. That's tends to be my module, which has to do with marketing and business development. As I mentioned before, I try to look across both open and custom and looking from a marketing progression. How do we build awareness? How do we drive conversions? How do we support post-purchase satisfaction? So it's more than just the awareness side of things. It's sort of the pull through, and how do we align teams around those things? What are customers willing to pay for? Again, this sort of takes what we have talked about in the business canvas and the value conversation, and how do we get it further? How do we get products to people? How do we make them so that they really want to be bought? Then you'll see the last dot there is it's optional. We offer a opportunity for people to do 360s. It's, some are more interested in that than others, and that's okay. But it is available, and you can have a full debrief around your 360 should you choose to do so. Then going to March and April, we have a whole topic around operations, which really looks to help people think about, again, their organizational structure, what are the team support they need, efficiencies, right? And this is always an interesting one because we're all structured differently, so we have different perspectives around what should the operations look like. What do we think about metrics? How do we measure operational efficiency? So that sort of is covered in the operations module. And then the leader one is, I would call this what makes a good leader in exec ed. This one is, I'm going to call it a more pure leadership development module, looking at sort of what are the skills, competencies that a leader in this business, what makes them successful, and some real tips on how to improve those skills. As you can see at the end there, then we go into mentoring. We try to get you connected to your mentor, and the goal, and you'll see it in the next slide. We'll talk a bit more about mentoring in a pull-out here in a second. The goal is for you to meet several times with your mentor in sort of a progressive way, right? The first one is really looking at, the first meeting looks at getting to know each other, some of the goals and challenges, and then over the next several to sort of build on getting some answers, some structure, and some ideas conferred over to you in the process. And then you can see the last couple of modules there, building alliances, which obviously has to do with partnering today. So some of those are with peer institutions, sometimes those are with competitors, sometimes that's with technology partners. So it can look for different things, but that's what we're kind of looking to discuss in that module. And then lastly, the budget side of things, which just really has to do with the financial aspect. So I say all of this is what a sample has looked like. Broadly, I would say that the topics are going to be similar. We hold the caveat that there are some that we might receive feedback and say, okay, we're going to tweak it and go more this direction. So this is a sampling of what a program has looked like in the past, and but not necessarily exactly what next year will look like, but similar. I hope that's clear. And I'm going to push the next slide, but then I'll pause there for any questions you have about the curriculum. This is really just going into the mentoring design. Again, we do a survey. Each person responds to a survey of questions that helps us understand not only who you are, but what you want to get out of a mentor experience. And then we work very closely to pair you with someone that we think will help meet those goals. You have a chance to meet 3 times with the mentor, and then some continue to meet afterwards. Many of our mentors are very happy to do that. There's not like an additional fee that they'll charge you, but if the relationship is a good one and you're both getting some value out of it and you want to keep having a conversation, there's no stop to that. But again, we really try to push everyone for at least three meetings to get the maximum value out of that relationship. So let me pause there for a second. We've talked curriculum, we've talked audience, we've talked mentoring. Hopefully we have covered a good amount of the topic. I'd love to hear from all of you what you might hope to get out of the ULA experience. You know, maybe it's not a specific question about what it is, the program, but perhaps just share what you're interested in. What brought you to the meeting today, and what makes you interested in the program, and hopefully that can connect the dots for you. Yeah, so could you provide some examples of goals shared by mentees? Yeah, so I would say probably the biggest goal of a mentee is to learn about be careful with my word here. Let me get the right word. It's development in the sense of people often want to progress in their career, right? So whatever their role is, they often have aspirations of going to the next level, hierarchically in their institution. And so a lot of times, at least in my experience, the questions around the mentee has had is, how have you navigated that? How have you navigated promotions? How have you stepped out of your comfort zone to take on new roles and challenges? How have you overcome either colleague or political minefields, right? Like we all have those things. And I think that a lot of times you get to a mentor-mentee relationship, that's where a lot of their goals are also rooted in their own context and challenges. And so oftentimes I think a mentor can at least share their experiences, what has worked, and try to give some guidance on what can make that process better, faster, easier. Shawnee, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I do actually.
Please,
Thanks.
thank you.
It also can be very specific too. I've been a mentor for the last several years, and I've been paired with people who also just need a safe space to like bounce things off of someone else outside their organization, get a different perspective looking in. So that's one thing. It's also how to look at it from an industry standpoint. They might be in one place, as Peter mentioned, but they want to maybe have more scope. But how do you look at it at the 10,000-foot level, at the industry level? So that's another thing. Another example is someone who specifically is in exec ed in a program management role, but they're really interested in coaching. And so that was actually one of the, excuse me, one of their goals for mentoring this year. So I paired them with someone who has been a coach and how they've navigated their career within their exec ed shop. So those are just other examples of what others have looked for mentoring for.
I see a question here about, could you provide some examples of profiles of mentors? You have two of them in front of you. Both myself and Shalini have been mentors for many years. So an example, like for me, I'm the associate dean. I lead my shop, and so, but I've also been in many different roles. I've been director of marketing. I've been a managing director. I've been executive. So I've had different roles and different experiences. Shalini has also been through many roles in the business development, customer satisfaction, program development space. But I look across people that have been are currently mentors or have been mentors, and usually they're in pretty senior roles, and so that they have a breadth of experience that likely would be, I won't say aspirational, but at least likely quite senior, quite experienced, and likely be able to impart some experience that would be helpful. That's kind of the lens that we use. Shawnee, you want to talk more about that?
Yeah. So additionally, we're looking at it from a global standpoint. So we also take into consideration time zones and people's interests. Typically, it's beyond the board. We really want to provide breadth. And so through meeting people, through all the different conferences, we really tap into the network to find mentors for all of you. And because it's typically between 20 and 30 people, that's a lot of people to find mentors for, but we make it happen. And as Peter mentioned, they're usually heads of schools or leading a large piece if they are at a larger organization. So that's just something that's unique. Is we really look at it from a global standpoint as well. So it's not just US based. We have global mentors too.
Great point. Thank you. And yeah, it really is a lot of times it comes down to who the mentee is and what they have expressed as their goal. And that's how we try to get the right alignment to make sure that there's a good match for all the things that Shalini just mentioned.
And it's an art, not a science. So
Yeah.
really, really read the forms that you all fill out to then pair and match people accordingly, and then see what might work.
I have a few more slides here, none of which am I going to read to you, but I'm going to put them up on the screen just so you get a sense of what other folks have said about the ULA. There's more of these that exist on the UNICON website, but I really wanted to have Shalini just talk to you all. Again, she has been through the ULA, one of the very earliest cohorts, and has reaped a lot of her own benefits from it. And so I thought it'd be better to give you a live testimonial, someone that you can ask questions to. And so, Shalini, if you would, I'm gonna turn over to you just to share your experience with the ULA.
Yeah, sure. So I was very fortunate to be selected in the second cohort of ULA. And I will say that, as Peter mentioned, the structure continues to evolve over time, and we had to deal with a pandemic as well. But my cohort was really small, but very special. And so even from a learning standpoint, as Peter had put up the program benefits, I feel very fortunate because you really have the ability to really get to know those that are teaching. It's very interactive. They make time for you. And so you can go in depth into a lot of the topics that Peter had suggested for your own development, depending on what's of interest to you. And so the business model canvas that Peter mentioned was super interactive. I love that session. And you went deep. And I think, to Luis's question, if that's something that you would like to explore through the business model campus, that gives you the opportunity to do so for example, for mid-markets. I love that it gives you both the hybrid program, because you meet and live and online, then you meet in person. So you get to know each other really well, just like your participants do in their own programs. And one thing I will say about that is the impact around networking was humongous during that time in person, that carried into the live online sessions. And even I took it in 2017 when the pandemic hit. Those in my cohort, we actually started meeting on a fairly regular basis to just check in. And so these people become your lifelong friends that you can actually bounce ideas off of, connect with still, and support each other through your exec ed careers and beyond. I'm still connected with some of those that have left the industry as well. So that's about the networking. It's invaluable from a peer standpoint as well as those that teach. So I highly recommend from that standpoint. And then the mentoring. I was very fortunate that Monica Sacristan, as Peter mentioned, she was my mentor. And I got to learn so much from her during my mentorship. And I was one of those that we continued meeting and still meet on a fairly once or twice a year basis to just check in. And that was in 2017, and now we're in 2025. So you build these long lasting relationships. And I think I would not be where I am today from a UNICON standpoint without the support of the ULA and all the other leaders that I've met during my time. I'm the first ULA member to be on the UNICON board, and I will be chair next year. And so without this awesome network and support, and really giving me the 10,000 foot level, getting out of my own shop was a great benefit as well. So that's what I have been truly transformed by ULA at the end of the day. I would love to answer questions that you might have to make it a bit more interactive.
Thanks, Shalini. Yeah, that's the end of our sort of structured remarks, and so we really want to open it up to you all. Answer your questions. If you're willing to share sort of what interests you about the ULA, what scares you about the ULA, we're happy to have any of those conversations. If you have any questions for Shalini about her experience, now is the time. We've got about 10 minutes remaining, so if there's anything that we can help answer, we're happy to do so. I've been scrolling through. As you can see, we've got many pages of testimonials. They're here for you to read at your leisure. But this is also sort of the link to the application if you're so moved to do so. But really, we're here for you. So whatever we can do to help you that's what we do.
Karen, I think it'd be great to hear from you since you're administrating the application. Could you share more? Someone asked about the application deadline, and we know the program starts in October, but would love for you to maybe add more color.
Yeah. So there's actually no deadline because it's such a popular program that to say the deadline is, for instance, we used to say it was May or June, we would fill the cohort way before that. So people that waited until the deadline, that wasn't a good idea. So we just urge people, if you are interested, please apply as soon as possible because we do fill it. Last year, I believe it was by June that we filled it. This year, it could be May. We already have 10 people signed up. So that's why there's no deadline. And I think there's a question, Jason. We are sending out the PDF of the slides, and I'll also share the recording from today with all of you.
Thanks so much, Taryn. And we can't thank Taryn enough. Taryn does an amazing job just organizing all of the things for all of the ULA learners, materials, communications, calendar invites. Well, she really does an amazing job of making it a seamless learning experience, so that you're not scrambling to figure out what's next. You'll always know what's coming next and how to stay on track. Thank you, Linda, for sharing, your interests. Yeah, I can't underscore the value of the network. I will share a personal story, but I'm also happy to be quiet if anyone wants to talk instead. But I'm good at filling air.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So here it goes. I'll tell you my story. So I came from non-industry, right? I had no business ever being in executive education. I owned restaurants before this. It was not, it was not. It wouldn't have been scripted in anyone's prediction. But for me, I joined executive education before the ULA existed. And so I really leaned on just UNICON conferences and had to do a lot of network building because I felt so far behind. Because I came from non-industry, executive education industry, not even learning development industry. It was all new to me. And what I think that ULA does is helps accelerate people's onboarding and strategic thinking planning for this business. Much better, faster, and more organized than my experience was. My experience, while UNICON was a great resource, it took many years for me to get to the comfort level that I think that people come out of the ULA with within, under a year. So just my personal experience was, I guess my personal experience is I wish that I had done the ULA and it existed back when I started in this business. But I think it serves that value quite a bit. One of the earlier slides mentioned scholarship options. Can you share more about that? Taryn, I'm going to ask you about that. I don't know the specifics about the scholarship options. I apologize. Joanne, we might have to get back to you on that just because I think I mentioned at the beginning, I'm just taking over from Monica, and I don't recall. I'll have to do some investigation on what the scholarship function was. I saw it on there, but I didn't want to change it because I didn't know. But let us get back to you on that if you don't mind. I apologize. Thank you so much, Joanne. I apologize. Thank you.
And the other thing about what's great is you can take the learnings back to your organization. So it really not only enhances your skill set, but it helps overall, taking it to your teams, to others, so they're learning as well with you. So from that standpoint, that's another added benefit. If you're trying to sell it into your leadership team on why you should attend. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm just reading, Joy, I have similar background as you, Peter, and one of the things that excites me about UNICON is the broader accelerated learning of executive. Yeah, 100%. It's yeah. So Joy, I don't know if you can relate, but when you're looking from the outside in, right, when you're just starting to get into the exec ed space, I feel like it's a group of unique peers, because when you're in the industry, you all share the same pain points. But when you're coming from outside the industry, you feel so isolated by some of these nuances. I'll give you an example. For me, was I was so used to owning my own businesses where you can make HR decisions quickly and efficiently. And then I go into the bureaucracy of a university and I was like, I can't get my head around all of the different hoops I have to jump through. And it was helpful to have peers to have those conversations with, like, oh my gosh, how do you handle hiring and firing in this industry? So yes, it's good to have peers to have those kinds of learnings and conversations with.
It excites me and scares me, I will say, about the ULA, but similar experiences. The biggest takeaway is how much time it takes and collaboration it takes to make some decisions. So, but yeah, very excited.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for the comment, and thanks for your interest. We appreciate it. The current trend, challenges, expectation, but also its future trajectory. Yeah, the next. I feel like we used to be able to do strategic planning for 5 years. Now I feel like at max it's 3 years, and even that feels like
if you're lucky.
Yeah, I'm saying it still feels like Fantasyland a little bit, like 3 years. I wish I knew what was going to happen in 3 years. I have some wild guesses, but I mean, feels like astrology sometimes. I'm not sure I know for sure. Anyways, yeah, but I can assure you that it's helpful to have some groupthink around some of these things, because I'm constantly given ideas or perspectives from people from different parts of the world, different size shops that I wasn't even thinking about. And that often helps me sort of stay informed about what's coming next. So, so thanks for the comment. Well, again, we're coming close on time. I'm happy to answer any more questions. I don't want to hold you hostage. I know every minute counts. So I will stay on for a few more minutes. Thank you for your interest. As Taryn said, if you're serious about taking the ULA, we do recommend applying sooner than later, just to make sure that you get a spot. Yeah, happy to answer any questions. If you want to email me or if you want to have a conversation, I'm happy to do that as well. Feel free to reach out. But look forward to meeting many of you in the fall with the next cohort. So thanks again, everyone. Really appreciate it.
I've added my email if anyone wants to email me. Happy to answer any questions.
Oh, good call. I'll drop mine in there as well, and happy to answer.
And please note the TDC registration probably will open up this summer. So these two processes are not linked at this moment in time. So they're two separate pieces. One is the ULA application, and then also the TDC.
Standing it. I dropped my email in the chat as well. If you have any questions or you want to follow up with anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Shawnee has hers in there, and yeah, it's great. Great to meet all of you, and hopefully we see you in the fall. If not, have a awesome summer. It's hard to say we're already talking about summer, but we are.
Well, for those that are in the Northern Hemisphere.
Fair. Good point, Shelly. Good point.